Alright, welcome back to Fairy Tail Anime Re-Review Part 2. This one, like Part 1, discussing just 2 episodes this time. Daybreak arc. Yes, covering episodes 3 and 4 of the series, and covers 5 chapters of the manga. Actually covers 6. Covers chapters 4 through 9. This one is simply Lucy's first mission. That's the simple gist of it. You might be asking, Nick, any new characters make debut in this arc? Yes. Only 2 this time, not a boatload of them. Yes, only 2 this time. One makes debut in this first episode, episode 3. The other one does not make debut until the end of the episode, though it's a quick cameo. But yeah, I will discuss her. So, we also have a debut of Lucy's apartment in this episode. Yep, episode 3, debut it. And this particular apartment becomes basically a regular setting for the series. Aside from the guild hall itself, yeah, this becomes a regular setting for the series for pretty much the entire rest of the series. And it starts a recurring gag in this episode. What gag is that? People from Fairy Tail breaking into her apartment. A lot of the time was Natsu and Happy doing this. Yep. And of course you have Lucy just in her bath, just relaxing, and then she gets out with a towel on, and she's like, oh, relax, go bedroom. And then she sees apparently Natsu and Happy having up her food. Not all her food, some of her making a mess. So they get out, of course, she gets dressed off screen after she to beat them up, and she was Happy to stop scratching her walls, and then, of course, Natsu read some of her book. Yeah, her book itself, that would become another big plot point that basically will drag on for pretty much the entire series. Yes, that plot there would not be resolved until like the final episode of the series, when the book itself was finally finished. Yeah, this is the book's debut. It is actually brought up a lot in this series. Sometimes she spends some episodes working on it, sometimes she doesn't work on it. But yeah, it becomes a regular fixture for the series for pretty much the rest of the franchise. This episode, she explains the concept behind her keys, where basically she shows up 3 of her keys, one of whom, actually 2 of them made a debut just in the previous episode. This one, they have the third key, which is a crab key, with the 3 gold keys that she has. You have Aquarius, you have Tauros the cow, and the crab one, who he doesn't show up until episode 4. You see the key for the first time, and then you see the actual contract. And by the way, who becomes the contract? What character is it? Puar! Yes, the very same character from Raid Master, except they confirm it's the same species. Yes, it's the same species, but not the same character. Not really, no. They kind of explain this in a crossover later on. Despite the fact that both named Puar, they're 2 completely different characters. Yeah, despite the fact they had the same exact appearance. And fun fact about this character, he also shows up in Eden Zero as well. Yep, he does. In the very same episode that Natsu and Lucy themselves make a quick cameo. Because of course they do, because Hiromashi likes reusing his characters. Yes, and believe it or not, there's actually a villain group of Raid Master shows up in this series. Oh boy, I will get to them. They show up in a filler arc. But an original arc, believe it or not. Yes, that's when they first show up in this series, which I thought that was kind of strange. Yeah. So, basically, like, Natsu and Lucy decided to basically team up with Lucy to form a team, which is actually the start of Team Natsu for the series. And this team will also last the entire series, even still continues in Century Quest. Yep, this team will last a long time. Yes, by far the longest partnership of the entire series. Well, aside from Levi, Jet, and Droy, which they actually mentioned that in a flashback later on in the series, they first formed several years prior to events of the series. So, they decided to go on a job. What job is it? They have to go to a mansion and steal a book. And the owner is looking for beautiful blonde maids. And of course, well, oh yeah, and they say the pay is 200,000 jewels. The later review is actually 2 million jewels. Of course, Natsu don't know about that until they get there. Yep, so And of course, Levy wanted the job apparently because she's a bookworm. They kind of start out that because she's also kind of, excuse me, in the way the kind of like the librarian. The one is she's a massive book reader like Lucy. Yeah, these two actually become best friends over the course of the series. Yes, Lucy becomes best friends with not only Levy but also Mira Jade. Another character pops up later. Actually, she becomes best friends with several of the female characters of the series. Male characters, I would say that the one she becomes really good friends with is probably Gray and Natsu. These two, they get along fantastic with each other. Well, Natsu, because it's hinted later on, Lucy is implied to have feelings for Natsu. One of two, mind you. I'll get to that later on. Don't worry about that. So, they go and get their... so, basically, Lucy gets her maid off, while Natsu and Happy go and get some food. Which, not a bad idea. Don't need to see her shopping and put the maid off it. Just go get the job. And the guy... And, of course, then we have Virgo make her appearance. This is actually not technically Virgo, not the pretty Virgo who appears later on. Oh no, this is the big grotesque one. The one is a super muscular woman. Yeah, lucky enough this doesn't last very long. When she shows up again, she basically is much more acceptable. So she bears over the ground. Apparently the owner of the mansion actually can have ability too. Yeah, he also can summon key. He has one key. Apparently he likes buying stuff. Yeah, he's basically a rich type. He's basically evil rich man. And he turns on Lucy. So, not just like, screw getting the maid job. We're going to break into the mansion. And apparently this guy's got a lot of good stuff. He's got some ugly statues of himself. These gold statues. He must spend a fortune on this stuff. And they find the library. And it's a very small library. But I got hands on it. At least got hands to take care of his books. And just by sheer coincidence, Natsu just happens to find the book they were looking for. I'm like, okay, so all I do is burn the book. And it turns out that Lucy actually is a fan of the writer for the series. Yes, Lucy loves books. It's a recurring thing for the series. Yes, one of several anime I come across where some of the male or female characters are massive book readers. Yes, so she attempts to read the book a little bit, and then of course the owner shows up with Virgo and some of the other ugly-looking maids. Natsu, of course, takes out the other maids pretty easily early on, and then it turns out he actually hired, when Lucy goes off to read the book, figure out what exactly this book holds, he brings out two mercenaries who Natsu basically easily beats the crap out of, and then finds out the secret. There's a spell in the book, and it has nothing to do with the owner. And I think the owner, oh yeah, that's all about him. Nope, it has nothing to do with it at all. And then, of course, he proceeds to tear up his own mansion, and then, of course, there's someone Virgo who turns out she is a celestial spirit. And basically, Natsu became the first person to travel through celestial space who's not a celestial spirit. Yeah, that's kind of funny, the fact he's completely unaffected by it. Because it's explained that time passes, apparently slower there than it does in the real world, which I thought that was kind of weird. Where apparently 3 hours there is equivalent to 3 months in the real world. I'm like, wow, that's quite something. Yep. So, it explains later on in the series. Don't worry about that. So, and then they turn over the Daybreak book over to the owner. He was going to burn it, but it turns out the book was actually about him. It's basically a letter to him. She basically just activates a spell and to change his name from Daybreak to Dear Kobe. Turns out this guy is actually the son of the virtual author. Because the virtual author committed suicide. And the only reason why he stopped writing the book because basically he finished his masterpiece. And this other made him happy. It turns out, though, that they were actually not rich. At all. And not to figure out right away that the house was not there. It was rented. And they go home and, of course, they get lost. And just by sheer coincidence, they run into Gray, who's actually trying to take a bathroom break in the bushes. Because he wanted some privacy. And oh, you want to go in the bushes naked? Oh, he's wearing boxers. And then Happy gets taken. Yes, Happy gets taken. While apparently he's going fishing. And then, of course, this group of guys try to eat them. And then, of course, Natsu and Gray fight them while Lucy frees. Well, Happy. There's a guy with a globe. And this is so hilarious. He teases something that happens in the Phantom Lord arc. Yes. Excuse me. Where basically he reads, he reads apparently Gray's future. You'll meet a woman who has trouble with water, which means he's teasing Juvia. Yes, he teased Juvia as far back as episode 4, even though she makes debut until later on. Like halfway through the season. Like, damn, that is quite something. That's ballsy. The fact that this arc predicted Juvia, one of the most important characters of the entire series. Yeah, it is so hilarious. Yeah, and then after they all get beaten, yeah, I think this is so hilarious. Yeah, the fact that this episode actually teased the debut of Juvia. Like, oh, yeah, I'm trouble with a woman with water. Yep, I was right. Yep, teases future related with Juvia. Like, wow, that's something. And then all these guys just disappear by a guy called Lullaby disappears. That is just a tease for the very next arc. And then the episode ends with the debut of my favorite female character of the series, Urza Scarlet. She shows up carrying this gigantic horn, one-handed. And she does not say anything at all, but I know it's Urza. Yep. Oh, and there's several gags about her that, okay, she changed her armor a lot. Okay, that's not the big gag. The gag is not that. The fact the writer forgets what armor looks like. The fact she loves eating sweets. And apparently she's into reading porn. Yes, Urza Scarlet has no problem reading porn. Oh, and here's another thing. She has no problem anybody sees her naked. Okay. Yes, she is that weird of a woman, but she's awesome. And she's voiced by one of my favorite voice actors, Colleen Glickenbeard. She doesn't speak this episode, she'll speak next episode. Oh, don't worry about that. She'll basically speak about that, but yeah. Which I thought was just so hilarious. The fact they teased that. Yep. Yeah, and that's going to be pretty much it when it comes to talking about this particular two-parter. It's a pretty good arc. I mean, it shows off debut of a character. It teases something that happens later. Oh, yeah, and I found out that apparently that fight didn't happen in the manga. Nope, that was made for the anime, but that was hilarious. The fact that, oh, yeah, future with a woman who drove water. I thought that was so hilarious, the fact we teased Juvia this early. Because I think the writers, I think the people who made the anime just couldn't wait to include Juvia. Which I found to be so hilarious. Yeah, the fact that they were teasing that of all things. The Juvia herself will not make her debut until episode number 21. Anybody thinking, really? Oh yeah, really. Like, not much longer after this. Like, this is only episode 5. She doesn't show up until, like, episode 21, which is exactly in 17 episodes. So, not much longer to her debut. I mean, yeah, she's one of my favorite characters, but yeah. I can't wait for a debut with Juvia. And who would have thunk, though, they basically tease her debut back in episode 4 of the series. I thought that was so cool. Yep. So yeah, that's it for this particular review. Stay tuned. Well, if I get time to tonight, I probably won't get time to tonight. Of doing a part 3, we'll just start discussing the very next arc of the series, which is called the Ensword arc. Yep. But until I see you all in my next review. Oh, and by the way, in case you're wondering though, like before I end this video here, is there another new anime coming tomorrow? Yes, Shaman King. So expect to see a review for Fairy Tail and Shaman King tomorrow. Okay, see you next video. Bye.